is the Patriots Drive Podcast.
We are all Patriots.
Where we discuss, analyze, and answer questions to all things happening in the NFL and with our New England Patriots. Now, here's your host, Cole Kelly.
Let's go!
Welcome back to the Patriots Drive Podcast. It's a bit of a big one today. Patriots fire head coach Jerod Mayo after winning their last meaningless game of the season to fall to the 4th overall pick in the draft. A lot of different things could come from this, and there's a lot of different things we're going to discuss, different candidates, the possible fallout with the rest of the organization as a whole, GM, all that type of stuff. So I'm here with my co-host, Jace Campbell. How's it going, Jace?
Yeah, man, it was a crazy day yesterday, full of emotions, right? Wanting the number 1 overall pick, being so close to it, seeing a future of, hey, we can land, 2 or 3 future first-round picks and possibly a pretty named player in a trade if we were to acquire the number 1 overall pick. And then what was it, even 10 or 20 minutes after that they fired him? Like, it was I don't even know if he had time to shower after the game. He might not even have seen his family. So, I mean, it was really quick. So whirlwind, and yeah, we're here to talk about it. And I'm sure it'll be a lot of talk this offseason, until they find one, and who knows how long it will be. So
yeah, I think it was within an hour. And I remember I was watching his post-game press conference, and he seemed, for a guy who just won a football game, he seemed very pissed off and just irritated. And I didn't think anything of it at the time, but then 20 minutes later, when it came out that he got fired, I was like, that makes a lot of sense, because he was just very snappy and irritated. And if you go back and watch it, it kind of makes a lot more sense of why he was the way he was. What's up, Edward? But yeah, it was quick. You don't usually see it that fast, but Mayo is gone.
I gotta say, it's what I wanted, and it's what I think needed to happen. But you got to feel bad for Jerod Mayo. He's a good guy. Jerod Mayo, what he did for the organization as a player, as an assistant coach, he's a good guy. He was in over his head, and I really do think it was very mature of Robert Kraft today to take some of the blame, because I think some of the blame should be put on Robert Kraft. Jerod Mayo had 5 years to prepare, and he was not ready for it. The other thing I don't like, that I like what they're doing here, I felt like they didn't even interview external candidates last year. They knew who it was going to be, which is fine, but when it turns out like it did this year with Jerod Mayo, now you're like, gosh, you probably got to look out for some other candidates. And so it was mishandled on all fronts. And there's going to be blame on Robert Kraft. There's going to be blame on Jerod Mayo. I feel bad for Jerod Mayo, guys. It's not easy to go through what he's going through. He also had a very bad roster. Like, he did not have a good roster. And so, yeah, you can say that, but there was enough there. Like, there was enough there between how he handled the media, how he handled the team, personnel, things like that. The development of young guys is a big one, in my opinion, to where it was warranted. I just feel bad for the guy, because Jerod Mayo is a good guy. I like Jerod Mayo as a person. Just as a coach, it was bad timing.
I felt that way too, a little bit. Which I don't know. Like, even before he got fired, I was like, I kind of had that feeling. And then after he got fired, like, that was one of my first reactions was, yeah, I was conflicted. I was happy because I think it's the right decision, but it's like, I don't know. He didn't. It's just tough. I don't feel like he deserved to be fired, but I don't think he as a person deserves this, because, yeah, like you said, he's a good dude. He's clearly well liked. I just think he was unfairly put in a position he wasn't ready for, and he was in way over his head way too soon. And that's not his fault. I mean, if somebody's offering you a head coaching job and you're a coach, you're not going to say no, if you know what I mean. So he got an opportunity to be the head coach of his hometown team, the team he played for his career, and he took it. But he was clearly in over his head. There were so many repeated mistakes over and over again. The defense regressed as a whole this year. Basically, everybody that they re-signed was worse this year than they were last year. There was just, like you said, no development of players. And even Elliott Wolf himself kind of threw the coaching staff under the bus about this year's draft and said, listen, we were kind of banking on a little more internal development of these guys, and we just didn't get it. So I think it's a whole mix of things. I think there's so many different things that this organization did wrong this year. And I just think there's a bunch of different avenues they can go to try to get this thing back on track. But kind of going back to the first overall pick thing, that would have been a great start. Is you get that pick, you collect some assets, you probably trade back to 4 where we are anyways, and take who you're going to take now. But you have 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick on top of that, or whatever it would have been. So
Yeah.
I just think it gave you so much flexibility. But I agree with you about Mayo. I do feel bad for him a little bit, but I'm also happy with the move, depending on where we go from here.
I want to ask you one thing, because I talked about this in my mock draft Monday that I uploaded today. Were you a little mad that they didn't play Drake May for more? Like, I get it. He's had a concussion. He took a big hit last week, but if the intent was to go out there and win, which I don't know if that was the intent or not. Obviously, the players are going to go out there and play hard. You heard a lot of them say it, but I wanted to see Drake May torch this team. Like, maybe the Patriots will get a 3rd-round pick for Joe Milton. It sounds like there's some trade interest based off of reports. I don't know how true those are, but I would have loved to have seen Drake May go out there, get a couple more passing touchdowns, a couple more rushing yards. Like, he only played in 11 games this year. Let him go out there. That one was a little bit, I don't know. I wanted to see Drake May go out there and play just for the fun of it, for the fans, finish off his rookie year. Like, he hasn't had the most miraculous rookie year. Yeah, he showed a ton of promise, but it's like, let him go out there and dominate these second stringers, and at least if you're going to go win, at least be like, hey man, Drake May threw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns against the backups. And it's not like we won by 6 points like we did. Maybe we could have went out and won by 21. And I don't know. I was just a little bit mad that we went out and won the way we did and sat Drake May. I wish they would have played him if we knew we were going to win all along.
As weird as this sounds, I almost think there's a chance that Milton gave us a better shot to win necessarily, but I almost feel like in this game, it's a meaningless game. You're having backups in. Drake May is not going to be locked in like it's a playoff game on the line. You know what I mean? Joe Milton, it's his first career start. He was playing his ass off. I mean, he was clearly running around back there. He was doing everything he could. He played very, very well. I'm not mad about them benching Drake. No, I mean, you saw 3rd play of the game, he got sacked. 1st play of the game was a false start or whatever it was. So it's just like, I'm okay with it. I get what you're saying. You want to see some excitement. If we're going to win anyways, and we're not going to get the 1st pick, you want to see Drake May play and see some more highlights. But I just don't think it was worth it.
But I mean, Drake May got sacked against Von Miller, who was going for a $1.5 million bonus. Like, Joe Milton is out there against a bunch of dudes that probably won't see the field in the next 20 years. And they played like 5 total snaps of man coverage. Like, there were so many open receivers because the Bills were just like, throw it 10 yards short and we'll rally and tackle. Like, they weren't
really trying to win either.
Yeah. And so it's like, yeah, when Drake May was out there for 3 snaps, you got dudes out there trying to get some incentives. Like, Von Miller came off the edge like a bat out of hell because he was trying to get that 1.5 million. And so there was a little bit more. It's like Joe Milton. Yeah, there was still pressure on him, but it's like, it's not Von Miller coming off the edge. Stepping up and stepping, away from him is pretty easy. So
I was happy when he went out because I felt like originally
we were going to lose.
We might have a shot of losing.
Yeah.
And then Milton came in, and I was like, I wish Jacoby was the guy. But it tossing aside the 1st overall pick thing, it made all the sense in the world for Milton to be the one in there. See what you got. Now there's all this hype. People are calling about how much it would take for Joe Milton. Like, crazy what's going on here. But that really wasn't at the forefront for me. I was like,
okay.
I wanted the loss. I wanted Drake May to stay healthy. I mean, how would you feel if on that second drive he went out towards ACL and he's done for, 3 quarters of next year? So there's always that risk going out there, even for the first series. So I really wasn't focused on that. I was just more pissed off that we lost the 1st overall pick, and that was my main focus.
I get it. I totally get it. That's just something like, I just wish we would have seen more of Drake May. If I knew we were going to go out and win, I would have wanted to see Drake May torch him, because Joe Milton was fun and exciting. They had no game plan on him. No one has a game plan on him. Like you texted me during the game, like, where's the wildly inaccurate passes? Well, He's also hasn't played since the preseason, so no one's seen him there. He's obviously improved. Alex Van Pelt has proven he can develop a quarterback. He might not be the best play caller, but he can develop a quarterback. So he's improved. He's a big dude. He can run with it. I mean, it's just there was, a lot of favorable things out there for him, and it would have been nice to see Drake May do that. But that's beside the point. Like that was just a talk. I agree with you. I think that losing the first overall pick is probably the big story. And in my opinion, this might sound like a loser mentality. I saw a Patriots fan get mad at another Patriots fan on Instagram, like, because I believe it was Carlos. Los Pats Talk tweeted, like, we watched this whole season for the Patriots to end up with the 4th overall pick. Yeah. And someone said that's Browns fans' energy. Go find a new team. Yeah, something like that. And I'm like, the difference between 3-14 and 4-13. Okay, one more win. Yeah. I promise you that one win in the long run is not going to be as valuable as what we would have gotten for the first overall pick.
It was damn near unanimous that
yes.
Like you could, even the announcers during the game
were
like
joking about it.
Yes. Patriots fans got to be mad right now. They're up 1 in the 4th quarter, and
yes,
like, they took a knee at the end of the game, and there were boos from the crowd because they won. Like it was crazy. What's up, Light Shadows? When are we announcing Vrabel? We'll see. We'll touch on that soon. Stay tuned. But yeah, I just real quick, one thing I did take away from Milton being on the field was kind of what you said. That QB development staff has done a fantastic job this year.
Yes.
And if you can keep them, I don't know if Van Pelt will stay as a quarterback's coach, but if you can keep him in that role, not OC, keep him in that staff in the quarterback development room. That's one of the few rooms that's had great development this year. The wide receiver room stinks. We haven't been able to do that in years, but as far as QBs go, they did a fantastic job. So I wanted to give them the props for that, because that was one of the few bright spots from this year.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I said this. I like the Alex Van Pelt hiring from day one because he's developed quarterbacks. He hasn't called many plays. He did it a little bit in Cleveland. It was mostly Kevin Stefanski. So, but he can develop a quarterback. And I mean, Ben McAdoo was a quarterback coach too. He
was part of that staff. Too. Yeah. TC McCartney. Right.
And so, like they had a role. Like Drake May developed well. Joe Milton developed well. And like you said, yeah, there's probably talks right now in a weak quarterback class. Like, hey, is it worth trading a early 4th or a late 3rd for Joe Milton? Like, do we like him better than we like Jalen Milroe? Or do we like him better than we like a Dylan Gabriel or someone? Like, there might be legitimate talk. Now, there also should probably be a legitimate conversation like, hey, do we really want Jacoby Brissett as our backup, or do we want to keep Joe Milton? So that's a talk for another day, but he played good enough to prove that, hey, he's developed enough and some team could take a chance on him. So that is the one positive. I totally agree with you, but let's get into some of the head coaching talk. I mean, obviously Jerod Mayo fired. There's 2 candidates. They've already put in a request for both of them, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Or is it so Vrabel and Ben Johnson have both put in requests. Are they waiting to accept, or because I know Ben Johnson's might, like, if Ben Johnson were to be the head coach, I don't know if it would happen very quickly because he's in the playoff run.
Yeah. So just kind of for people to understand how that works, since they have a bye week, the Lions do. The Lions and the Chiefs, you can interview anybody from their staff until next Monday, but it's only virtual. Then you have to wait until after the divisional round, I believe, before you can interview and talk with those people again. I don't know if those ones would be in person or not, but I guess Ben Johnson is planning on interviewing with both the Patriots and the Bears. And then I didn't see much on Twitter about Vrabel, but I think Patriots.com was talking about that they are going to interview Vrabel. So, and I think everybody expected that. That was expected for sure. So those are my top 2 candidates. Those are the 2 guys that stand out to me more than anyone. So obviously super excited about that. And I hope they do go through the whole process. Like, as much as I would be happy with Mike Vrabel, I still hope they go through the process and talk to Ben Johnson and like really consider it, because there's been some talk about if it's Vrabel that comes in, he's probably going to retain some of the staff and then bring in like some of his own. Ben Johnson, on the other hand, could end up cleaning house and starting from scratch there. So I don't think that's a bad thing. I really don't. I think, like I said, outside of like quarterback development, we have not had much success anywhere, especially this year with that. So I think there's a few different coaches. Pellegrino is good. So a couple, if you can keep a couple, that's good. But for the most part, I think we could use a overhaul for sure.
Yeah, let's start talking Mike Vrabel because we figure
Okay.
he's the most likely one, and then we'll go into Ben Johnson, then a couple other candidates. But Mike Vrabel, I think that I don't want to say that the job is his for the taking, but I think that he's obviously the front runner, like you talked about. I think he wants it the most. Like there was a report that Vrabel interviewed with the Jets just to put pressure on the Patriots, which I believe. I think that he wants this job, and so I think that Vrabel's the obvious one. It would allow Robert Kraft to still be like loyal to one of his guys and bring in a Patriots guy. And the other report I like is I think that, or I do believe that Mike Vrabel does have big time assistants lined up to follow him here. Like he's been a coach, he's coached with a lot of people, he's played with a lot of people that would follow him. Now, who would that be? Some of you guys might not like this. If Josh McDaniels were to come back, that dude's done wonders. I would take Josh McDaniels back. I don't know about you. Would you take McDaniels back as OC under Mike Vrabel?
He
Alex
wouldn't.
Van Pelt or Josh McDaniels?
Yeah, Josh McDaniels. But I wouldn't say I'd be thrilled about it. Like I'd certainly be more excited about Ben Johnson running this offense, but that's a different story. You know what I mean?
I would, based off of how
I would be content with that.
I would be happy with it because of we've never seen Mac Jones better than with Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
Tom Brady had two. Well, Tom Brady was good with everyone, but we all know how good he was here. Like I think that some of the hate on Josh McDaniels is because he's been here so long and Patriots fans got like sick of him. I think he's a very consistent offensive coordinator. You could argue we haven't had a better offensive coordinator since he stepped out of the building. Like I would say that you haven't. Mm-hmm. So I think, other than Ben Johnson, he would be a legitimate one. And so, but I think that he would, like Vrabel would probably retain Dante Hightower. Like that would be my guess is he retains him. Maybe he retains like Matthew Slater, maybe DeMarcus Covington, and he's the DC, but Vrabel has a little bit more say in the defense than, Jerod Mayo would. But I don't, please don't tell me Gabe's talking about Tom or Ryan
Izzo. I don't know. People aren't talking about it, but
maybe he'll be tight ends coach.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom Brady, OC, Ryan Izzo, tight ends coach.
Yeah.
We got it all. But no,
I think you get that flipped. I think Brady would probably be downgraded to tight ends coach there.
There you go. So, I mean, I wouldn't hate it. I mean, there's better options, but I think that Josh McDaniels would do great with Drake May. I think that he would, open up the passing game for him. We all know he's been good with his play action passing stuff. He has a good screen game. Maybe some people think he overutilizes it, but I think he could also add some new twists with the legs of Drake May. Like we never saw him have a quarterback like Drake May that can run it. So I don't know. I think that that's an interesting one is that the reports are Mike Vrabel has like big time assistants that are willing to follow him. Who that is and if it actually is true is another thing, but that's one thing that I do like about that report.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest things with Mayo was like he didn't have any of that. No connections. Yeah. He's only been in the Patriots organization, nowhere else, and he was there for 3 to 5 years. So like Vrabel's a different story. He was in Tennessee for a while. He was with the Browns this year. And the main concern that I would have with Vrabel is just offensively. And you got to take this with a grain of salt. They had Derrick Henry as a running back and they had Ryan Tannehill as a quarterback, but they were like dead last in the league every year in pass attempts. That's not very exciting or appealing with Drake May as your quarterback. You don't want to just hand the ball off every time. But he did go to the Browns partially to add to his knowledge of offense and kind of get new perspective. The Browns are also a pretty heavy run team. So that's one thing. I think if Vrabel came back, I think we'd still be leaning heavily on the run. One good thing, he would kind of, I think, keep a similar style to Van Pelt based on Van Pelt obviously was in Cleveland for a while. So if he's wanting to stick to that Kevin Stefanski type offense, I think that would be good to have some rollover for Drake May where he's familiar with some of the concepts and knows what to do there. But I don't really love the idea of Arthur Smith.
I would have loved Brian Dable, but he obviously is staying in New York. Dable would have been a great option.
Awesome. And I think he would have liked that too.
Yes.
Okay. Old Man Mob. Perfect. Action Spot Sports.
Right here. It's
might
right
be
here.
able to
Sorry.
swap out the Mac Jones jersey.
I already have a Drake May jersey. I got it for Christmas, so I'll just keep the let's keep the tape on it. The Drake May tape.
Yeah. I gotta switch mine out though, because I got the stitched Mac Jones red jersey that was from last episode. I asked him to look into that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So yeah, that's my main concern with Vrabel. Other than that, he was well liked in the locker room. He was a great coach. He took some pretty mediocre teams to the playoffs. I think he's a great culture builder. I think we'd have a tough football team. I feel great about the defense moving forward if he is the coach, especially if you go draft an Abdul Carter or something. Yes. Like, I like it. I think Mayo would be a good hire. I mean,
Vrabel.
Jeez.
Rehire Mayo.
Yeah. You know what?
Would that
really
be a slap
intriguing?
in the
Jerod
face?
Mayo.
What if they're like, hey, we just constructed this big search and we're going back with Jerod Mayo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would feel good about Vrabel.
What I like about Vrabel, and I think I've said this before on this podcast, is I feel like if there's a coach that's no one's as gritty and tough as Dan Campbell, but I feel like if there's a coach that's going to bring that to a team, other than Dan Campbell, Mike Vrabel's probably the next closest. Like Mike Vrabel is a guy like that. I have heard stories. I personally know a guy, I coached with a guy that played for the Raiders when he was at the NFL Combine, where he was a religious, my buddy is religious. So he was like in there poking at him like, oh yeah. So what if I bring a beer in front of you? Are you going to be a pussy and quit on me or something? Like and that's a really weird and out there story. But it's like he kind of has that mentality. He is going to bring a whole different aspect of toughness, of grit to this team. And I think you saw that in Tennessee. That team probably did not have the talent to make the AFC Championship game. He didn't have the talent to win the Super Bowl, but he was competitive every year, 12 plus wins. He won a Coach of the Year award. Like I think that he would bring the toughness back to New England, which you kind of saw a lack of. Like we were pretty bad in the run game. The offensive line needs to get a little bit tougher, more knockback, things like that. But just as a whole, as a team in general, as a culture, I think he'd bring that back. He played here. He knows what it's been like. And so has Jerod Mayo. I'm not saying that that's, the end all be all, but I think Mike Vrabel has that similar to what you see in Dan Campbell. He's got that juice. I mean, I can't tell you how many times you looked at Jerod Mayo on the sidelines. It's like hands in his pockets. He's fixing his mic and stuff. Like Vrabel brings a little bit of passion, a little bit of energy and like juice on the sidelines.
The most excitement I saw was when we were beating the Bills yesterday. It's like, I was like, take that smirk off your face, Mayo. This is not the time for you to be smiling. Like, I was like, oh, come on, man. Yeah, Vrabel is a dog. I mean, I definitely agree with you there. I think in the trenches, I think in the run game, like run defense has been awful lately, and I think he would certainly improve that. But you just, even the stories from him and Brady back in the day, all the shit that he would get Brady all the time. And it was like almost too far, but he would like ride that line of okay to say and like, oh, maybe that's a little too far, but that's just who he is. And I definitely think we could use that in this locker room and to get these guys back on track defensively, because I don't think he'd be calling this team soft by the end of the year, because I don't think they would be soft. I think they would be back to a tough football team that wants to go out there, fly around, hit somebody. And that's not a team you want to play, especially late in the year. If they're flying around hitting people, that weather gets cold, it hurts more. So, and
everyone was like, when Jerod Mayo got hired, right? Like, oh, people are going to love playing for him. And I really do think people respected Jerod Mayo. Like
in the locker room, you heard it a lot.
But I don't think we've ever heard anything bad about Vrabel either. Like a lot of players have raved about Mike Vrabel. Mm-hmm. Like they love playing for him. So it's like that thing is whatever it was with Jerod Mayo, it's going to be the same thing, maybe even better with Mike Vrabel. Like he has that respect around the NFL. People want to play for him. He has that energy, he has that passion. There's a drill, or there's a video of him. I don't know if it's at the senior day or whatever, or maybe it's at the combine, where he straps on a bag and he's like doing defensive line drills with the dudes, and he's like getting smacked. Like the dudes are hitting him. That's the head coach out there with you. Like he's out there and he's competing with them and motivating them. So I like Vrabel's mentality. I like thing, and like you said, there's other options out there other than Vrabel and Ben Johnson. We'll get into after we talk about Ben Johnson. But honestly, I don't think they make a move 20 minutes after the season, firing a first-year head coach, without knowing it's Mike Vrabel or Ben Johnson. That's just my opinion.
I hope you're right. I really do. And yeah, Vrabel didn't get fired because he was a bad coach. Him and the GM did not agree on the AJ Brown trade, and it was all downhill from there. And I think that ownership wanted to stick by the GM and move on from Vrabel.
And look who was right about that one, because
Yeah.
Tennessee now is the number 1 pick. So
yes. So definitely don't think that was Vrabel. So yeah, I would love the idea of Vrabel, and I really do hope you're right about them having a high level of confidence that Ben Johnson or Vrabel would be here. And I don't think a lot of reports have said it's notable that Ben Johnson accepted the interview because he didn't do that last season. He wouldn't just accept it if he wasn't seriously interested in becoming the head coach. So very intriguing, both those options.
I totally agree. Let's start talking about Ben Johnson. I would say I love Mike Vrabel. I would say Ben Johnson's dream pick for me, probably.
I lean that way as well.
Patriots fan, because of the offensive aspect, right? Like, we've had a lot of defensive minded head coaches. Obviously, with Bill Belichick for 20 plus years, that's a defensive minded head coach, and then Jerod Mayo. But this might be the most creative offensive mind we've seen in the NFL in the past 20 years. Like, what he's doing with Penei Sewell. Did you see the touchdown 2 weeks ago where it was 3rd and 14? Amon-Ra catches a slant. They do a hook and ladder. They've done that like 2 or 3 times this year.
Yeah.
It's just a creativity and how he revitalized Jared Goff's career. I know this is partially Dan Campbell, but I love the aggressiveness on 3rd downs. They go for it a ton. They're pretty aggressive. Like, they have confidence in it. The other thing is he established the run game. Like, they have the best running back duo in the NFL, in my opinion, and statistically the most effective one, touchdowns wise, yards wise. Like, they have it, and so they've established the run game. Now, they built it from the front up, right? Everyone was like, "Hey, the Bengals should take Penei Sewell." The Bengals end up taking Jamar Chase, and then Penei Sewell goes to the Lions, and the Lions have one of the best offensive lines, if not the best. So they've built it from the offensive line up, which I think a lot of Patriots fans would want him to do it too. So Ben Johnson has that experience. And like you said, one thing that I would like about bringing in Ben Johnson is I do think he would clean house. And one of my top GM candidates, if they were to get rid of Elliott Wolf, would be Ray Agnew, who's the assistant GM for the Lions currently. He has been with them since 2021. He's pretty much helped them in those draft classes where they took Jahmyr Gibbs, Brian Branch, Sam Laporta, Penei Sewell. Like, I would love it if Ben Johnson was like, I'll take the head coaching job. You bring over Ray Agnew, and hey, then I'll bring over my assistant. Like, I would love that.
They got ragged on a lot for some of their drafts recently, and like right after the draft, and they have turned out fantastic. Everybody trashed on them for their reaction to the Jahmyr Gibbs pick.
Yep. And then Jack Campbell at 18.
Jack Campbell, yeah. And everybody was like, you could have got these guys way later. Like, what are you doing? And they have been awesome.
Yep.
So I would like that as well. I lean Ben Johnson as well, just because not just because I think he's great, but mostly because I think an offensive head coach is more valuable than a defensive, because offensive assistants get hired a lot more often than defensive assistants. So you're going through a lot of transition offensively. Your quarterback's the most important piece. I want a stable situation for him for a long time. So Ben Johnson would give you that. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. And then my only concern with Ben Johnson, I gave one with Vrabel, is this has been such a good roster. The Lions, the O-line, like you said, the running backs, you got Amon-Ra, you got Jameson Williams, you got Laporta, you got so many good pieces. Is he going to be able to make this offensive transition to a roster that is flipped on its head? You go from the best offensive talent to maybe the worst in the NFL. The QB is one great situation. He'll have the offseason to work with the draft and $130 million in cap space. So that's one thing, but that's my only concern. We haven't seen him do it as much without some of this talent, just because he hasn't been an offensive coordinator long enough to see that. But that's my only concern. And another good thing about him, though, a quarterback at UNC, that's kind of interesting. Just that he has some playing experience and then coaching at BC and Miami before he got to Detroit. So he's got a decent amount of experience, even for a young guy. And this is probably most Patriots fans, like you said, dream pick right here is him. And then Vrabel, I think I would prefer Ben Johnson, but I think Kraft prefers Vrabel. I think another rookie head coach right after this one, I think he's going to be worried. Oh, they're not ready. I think he's going to lean towards experience with Vrabel, and I think that's going to end up being the pick.
Yeah, and I was it Dan Orlovsky today talking about Ben Johnson on First Take or whatever, and he said if I was Ben Johnson and it was between the Bears and the Patriots, I would take the Patriots because of Drake May. Yeah. I think I said this 3 or 4 weeks ago. Why in the heck would Ben Johnson? I know we got the 4th overall pick, and when I said it, I was talking about them having the 1st overall pick. Why in the heck would Ben Johnson look at Chicago and say that's a better situation? Management-wise, their draft picks, the cap space for the Patriots. I know a lot of people are down on Robert Kraft, but I promise you the Patriots organization is better than the Bears. So I don't know why Ben Johnson, if those were like the top 2 he had and he got offered it, which we don't know if it will happen, but I don't know why he'd look at that and say, hey, I'm going to choose Drake May and the Patriots. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to bring my staff. I'm going to go to a fan base that's passionate. I'm going to go to $130 million of cap space. I'm going to go to a top 4 overall pick and 4 picks in the top 100. And I'm going to go over there and I'm going to put my stamp on it. I think that would be the most enticing job for him. Someone else mentioned the Jaguars. Someone was like, oh, he could go to Jacksonville and truly tap out Trevor Lawrence. No, like you would take Caleb Williams in that situation. You wouldn't want to attach yourself to Trevor Lawrence unless that was the only thing you had. So if the option were to appear itself or, become an option for Ben Johnson to be the Patriots head coach, I really think it would be like very, very, very intriguing for him to come in here. And the other thing that I will say this hesitantly, Amon-Ra is a great receiver. I'm not saying he's not, but other than Amon-Ra, there's not a ton of talent on that offensive side, like pass catcher wise. Jameson Williams has came into his own, but the offensive scheme and how his route concepts, how he calls plays is very friendly for receivers, tight ends, even running backs. Like he just knows how to get guys the ball. He knows how to get them open. Obviously, that's not an excuse for us to say, oh, well, we don't have to go sign T. Higgins or we don't have to draft a wide receiver. But I think his play calling, things like that would open up. It would make it easier for the receivers to get open. Like he's going to have a ton of pick plays. He's going to have a ton of route concepts that are going to beat man and zone. Like he's so creative with things like that I love that would bring an element to this offense I don't think Patriots fans have seen in 10 years. Like it's so exciting to think of Ben Johnson.
Yeah, no, I agree. And this is one scenario that I'd be interested in. I think if Ben Johnson is the hire, getting T. Higgins and then drafting him, I think that's an interesting combination. If you can trade back into the first round and grab him, I think that's certainly an intriguing idea.
Yeah.
Just because his playing style has been compared to Amon-Ra and kind of that bigger physical guy who's not like huge height wise. I think he's 6'1".
He's somewhere in that range.
But he's kind of a bigger guy who moves a lot like Amon-Ra. So I think that
6'1", 205. And one thing I'll say, man, is I think people have prospect fatigue with this guy because he's probably been talked about in the last 3 drafts. He should have came out. Well, he could have came out last year and probably would have been a late first round pick, maybe an early second. But I think people are getting sick of him. This dude's consistent, and Ohio State receivers kind of dominate in the NFL. Like they're really good in the NFL. So I would be very happy to take like into Emeka Egbuka. I think that Ben Johnson could tap into someone like him. But I want you to answer this question, then I'll answer it too from Old Man Mob. If Ben Johnson were to be the head coach, who would you prefer? Who would you like eye in on taking as a DC?
That's a good question.
I kind of caught you off guard, so I can go first if you want. Because I have time to look it up.
Best case scenario, you're getting Vrabel and Ben Johnson, but
boom,
that's not super realistic. Yeah, go ahead, go first. Let me
so there's 2 candidates that I pulled up, and I don't know if they're likely because I think they'll be. Well, I would love Flores, but he might get a head coaching job. Yeah. I was going to say Robert Saleh. I think Robert Saleh is really interesting as a defensive coordinator. He attached himself to Kyle Shanahan early in his career and like made deep runs and then got a head coaching job. So Robert Saleh maybe would be someone I would like. I just don't know if he has a connection with Ben Johnson in any way. The other one I like has been an NFL coordinator for a while. And he's been pretty consistent, but he's been at Michigan the last couple of years, is Wink Martindale. He used to be the Ravens defensive coordinator. He's been at Michigan. I would like to see him make a return. He's kind of got that Brian Flores type scheme where it's like very unique and a ton of blitzes, blitz heavy. So I kind of like that because you're talking about tearing it down. well, we don't need to run the Belichick system defense anymore, right? Like bring in a Wink Martindale type of defense and kind of change this whole thing. So those are two out of the box ones where I just don't know their connection with Ben Johnson and how realistic they'd be, but those would be two of my top guys just off the top of my head. Like I would like those two.
Yeah, I would feel good about really both those guys. I think Saleh is really interesting though.
Yeah, I would love Saleh.
Yeah,
he's another guy that's like I think that I don't think Ben Johnson's like a rah guy. Like he's calm, cool, and collected. Saleh's kind of like that. Saleh's got that in.
Yeah. Saleh is a psycho. He's like Dan Campbell. Like he is very animated.
So
but I would love
that.
Yeah. Did you see Rex Ryan thinks he's going to get the Jets job?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, he has had success there previously, and not many other coaches have. So maybe he's like, I could do it, but that organization is hard. So I would not want to go there if I was a coach. But yeah,
you think this fixes the wide receiver coaching?
Man, he could. The other reason that I do like the idea of Ben Johnson is because bringing in a new staff. Me and you have talked about this, and I know both of us have said this. It's not just on the drafting and development and the evaluating staff. Like there's something in the development staff, whether it's coaches or whatever. Every coach needs to be looked at. Like every position has had a guy that has not developed the way they thought they would. So I think, they need to definitely look into that. And I don't know if Brian Hartline will come. Like he probably won't. But the receiver, every single position has had guys not develop. So everything needs to be looked at.
Yeah, a ton of different positions. Ron Rivera, another interesting option. I don't know if you want to move on to this yet, but one thing I wanted to talk about was the situation. Kraft talked about it in his interview today, saying that Highsmith and Wolf are going to be leading the head coaching search.
Really?
Which is very odd because if you're thinking about bringing in a new head coach, like say Ben Johnson, he wants to clean house. How does that work? They're going to be hiring a guy who's going to fire him, or it just doesn't make a lot of sense. You know what I mean? So
Elliot Wolf's going to go to Kraft and be like, don't hire that guy.
Exactly.
Fire me.
Exactly. Yeah, he's gonna be like, oh yeah, no, his idea is awful. We can't, you know what I mean? Like that makes no sense.
He said he wants to run 13 personnel all game.
Yeah,
we need to get more tight ends.
He wants to cut Drake May and Joe Milton and Jacoby for the next decade. Like, I don't know. It's just that doesn't make any sense to me. I think they need to have somebody else, whether it's themselves or somebody doing the search. And if there needs to be full changes in the GM, all that stuff. You just don't want to see Vrabel or Ben Johnson come in and then be butting heads, having different plans than Elliot Wolf. I just think that creates a bad environment immediately. And it's already been such a crap show that I just want to see fresh people come in, all have the same positions and ideas and working towards the same goal. I don't want to see all this tension and different stuff. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? That they're going to be the ones leading that search?
I didn't see that. I saw one that said it was going to be Jonathan Kraft and Robert Kraft, and that they were, you know how a lot of people have been like hiring these outside agencies like the 33rd team to find GMs and stuff. Like I read something that said it was going to be Robert Kraft and Jonathan Kraft and not a hiring agency. So I didn't see the one you're saying, but
not a hiring agency, but Kraft said that Highsmith and Wolf, because somebody asked after, does that mean that they're staying? And he basically said that, yeah, they're going to be around. Hopefully he's just saying that because like, he's not going to say, no, they're going to be heading out in a couple weeks. I just haven't told him yet. You know what I mean? He's not going to say that, but I would hope that he has more of an open mind in saying Elliot Wolf's been here for a while.
Yeah.
We have been awful at drafting. I get his whole new system wasn't really implemented yet this past year. Give it a chance this year, but it's just been brutal. I mean, it's not only the drafting, it's the developing. It's just been horrendous. We just need a whole new staff. That's why I also like Ben Johnson, because I think he would tear everything down and say, this is what we're doing and start from here.
Yeah. So the report that I saw said the Patriots are delaying additional staff and front office changes as they await their next head coach. If Vrabel is hired, he will retain some current staff members. If Johnson is hired, a full overhaul will occur. I agree with you. If they have freaking Elliot Wolf in there sitting in interviews, and he's like, yeah, I want to bring in Ray Agnew and stuff like that. Elliot Wolf's going to be like, oh, that's my job. He wants to bring him in for. So yeah, I don't know. I would not. I hope that that's not the case. I hope that they're smarter than that. I want to give Jonathan Kraft the benefit of the doubt, but he also worries me too. Like that he's making so much of these decisions and stuff, because it seems like he's had his hand on a lot of these decisions lately too, and he hasn't. I don't think he's the best decision maker. So I hope that that's not the case.
You think Jonathan's the one who's? I think Kraft would lean more towards Vrabel. I think Kraft was the one in charge of Mayo. I feel like if anybody's going to be asking for change, I feel like it could be Jonathan.
I do agree with you, because he was visibly frustrated in the box at times.
Oh yeah, I mean he was ticked off. He was fed up, and I don't know, just the whole reasoning behind hiring Mayo just never made sense to me. Kraft felt like they connected on a trip to Israel. Like, I'm glad that he felt that way. Like, that's great. Like, that's not why you hire somebody to be the head coach of a professional football team, though. You know what I mean? Like,
totally agree.
So it's just, I think that's why Kraft felt so bad today, because he's like, I really screwed this guy. Like, it made no sense for me to do that at the time I did it, and he was not ready. So, I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hope that that's not the case. I'm indifferent about hiring or bringing in a hiring agency or letting Jonathan Kraft and Robert Kraft make the decision. So I agree. I mean, and the thing that makes me think it's probably Vrabel is because I do think that there's a little bit of pride in there with Robert Kraft, that like, hey, I want to stay loyal to, my guys and things like that. But I agree with you. I also think that he's been so fed up, and Jonathan Kraft is younger. Everyone talks about like the younger generation's more hip. Maybe he's like, Dad, like, we gotta get it. Look at everyone else. Like, look at what happened when Bryce Young sucked year one, and they got Dave Canales in there, who was an OC for the Buccaneers, and he improved. Like the last couple games, he was really good.
God. I mean, that Panthers team is exactly what you wanted the Patriots to be at the end of the year.
Yes,
they were competitive in every game.
Yeah, and Bryce Young looked really good.
He was cooking. Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, so maybe that is good. Going in there with Jonathan Kraft, and now that it's been as bad as it has been, a whole teardown is not. It doesn't look as bad in the fans. Like I think last year everyone's kind of like, keep a little bit, the Belichick way. But I think now seeing how it all went, people are like, yeah, like, hey, we'll take it. Like if you're gonna rip the whole thing down for Ben Johnson, then that's they could probably they can get on board with it. So yeah, maybe the Jonathan Kraft wokeness or whatever, maybe it will pay out for Patriots fans.
Yeah, we'll see.
But any other questions you wanted to answer in here? Cobra Kai World said Mike Vrabel, Rex Ryan.
That would be wild.
Would be nuts.
That would be crazy.
Jeffrey, I wish the Patriots could pick a tight end, and there's a great player on Penn State. Yeah, Tyler Warren. Yeah, he had a good Fiesta Bowl against Boise State. So I that's a hard part about this Patriots team, and that's why the number one pick would have been so good. Is like
so many needs.
You could literally argue, hey, we need a tight end because Hunter Henry's going to be gone in a year. We need a running back. Ramondre Stevenson's had fumbling issues. I don't know if Antonio Gibson's the answer behind him. Like you need offensive linemen,
tackles. Might need a guard.
You do need 2 tackles and a guard. Yeah. You probably need a cornerback too. And luckily they have a ton of money in free agency to fill some of these holes before the draft. But yeah, you still need to get there's a lot of spots on this team that you need to get young players in to start getting them, ready to go once these guys are off contract or whatever. So yeah, it's hard. You would have gotten a lot more assets for the number one overall pick. So
I watched some Carter today.
Oh yeah.
Big fan.
Yeah. I figured because you loved
Parsons.
Micah Parsons that you would like Abdul Carter. So yeah. Would you guys trade Milton? And if so, what could the Patriots get?
I mean, I'd have to get something significant because I just feel like, what's Jacoby making $10 million a year right now?
Yeah, a good backup is like a premium.
Exactly. And if you can keep developing him, if May goes down at some point and Milton comes in and looks phenomenal, you might be able to get a first for him at some point. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think I would keep him. He's a 6th-round pick. He's on a cheap deal. Keep developing him. Him and May, they play kind of similar styles. He's a little more run and gun than May at times. But I just think they're a similar style of quarterback. So I think that's always good. And he can also, if you want him at scout team at times, he can mimic some of these moving quarterbacks, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, all that stuff. So I would keep him unless you're getting like, I don't know, a second round pick right now, which would be
I mean,
crazy.
I would like to say a second. I don't know if anyone would do it. Depending
exactly.
on how high
that's what I'm saying.
Depending on how high the third pick would, or a third round, maybe I'd look at it. But like, I really do think, and I don't know how much to believe about the reports, but I really do think that there's probably teams out there like, hey, do we like Joe Milton better than the fourth quarterback in this weak class, right? Like my quarterback rankings right now, let's see if I can even find them in this mess of stuff that I have. So there, it's somewhere, but I'm pretty sure it's Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders. It was Drew Aller, but I guess he could still declare if he has a good last couple games and maybe they win the national championship. He might declare. Jalen Milroe, like brings a ton of rushing value, but he's kind of wildly inaccurate. And Jackson Dart, a lot of people are getting high on. I think Dylan Gabriel is like, I don't know. Yeah. So, I mean, he has the size, he has the frame, he can run, he has a rocket of an arm. There's going to be legitimate talks like, hey, if we need a quarterback or something, do we legitimately feel better, taking a chance on Joe Milton, who we just saw ball out, even though it was against backups and stuff, or take a young guy here. But I agree with you. It's really hard to find a really good second string quarterback on a cheap contract. Like that's a premium. So
yeah, no, I agree. I'm just going to do a quick rundown here for Gabe on our free agent list, which we'll dive into more later. But T. Higgins, big fan, obviously. Trey Smith, card for the Chiefs. Chris Godwin's a little bit interesting, but we're conflicted on that. Jace doesn't like him much.
I just don't like him at his age coming off of his injury.
I agree. I think
that's my thing.
DJ Reed, corner for the Jets. He wants out. He did seem to want to play somewhere where there's more winning. I don't know if he wants to come here, but he would be a good pair with Gonzalez. Ronnie Stanley, tackle for the Ravens, is interesting. Josh Sweat for the Eagles as an edge guy, another one. So those are kind of our top choices there.
I'm really curious. The last thing I kind of want to talk about before we hop off or wrap it up, I'm interested to see how getting like a Mike Vrabel or a Ben Johnson affects free agents wanting to come here, right? If you were to keep Mayo, I think, and I still think because of the last couple of years with New England, you're going to have to pay a little bit of a suck tax. You're going to have to pay a little bit more than probably you would have to, plus the taxes in Massachusetts is not the best. So I think you're going to have to probably pay or overpay a little bit more just to get good players here. I wonder, because people are now seeing, hey, Drake May, this is enticing. And hey, we got Ben Johnson as the head coach play caller now. Like, I wonder if that would be a little bit more enticing. So I'm interested to see how that would maybe affect it. Like T. Higgins, man, if you're like, all of a sudden the Patriots have Drake May, who's going to be a really good quarterback, and they have Ben Johnson, plus they're going to sign me, and now they can take a tackle in the first round or do whatever. Like, I think that maybe you won't have to pay as much of a suck tax, but there still probably will naturally be some.
And just think about how much this job was not coveted last year. Like everybody talked about who wants this job? Nobody. Like that was kind of what the storyline was then. And now it's like, this might be the best job on the market right now. Like you said, Drake May, most cap space in the NFL, top 5 pick. Like you got a lot. You got a lot of exciting things here. So I hope that translates to free agency, like you said, where you are getting guys wanting to play with Drake May and whatever the head coach ends up being, whether they're excited about Ben Johnson's offense or just playing for Vrabel and his defense. And so either of those would be interesting.
Totally agree. So there was a mock draft today, Boston GM. Guys, I just looked. It is at 2.4 thousand views right now in almost 10 hours of being up. So freak, heck yeah, appreciate you
Keep
guys
showing support.
Yeah, if you guys haven't watched it, it is the last video we uploaded. If you guys don't know what it is, I'm uploading a mock draft every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern time, and it's give or take, right? I'm trying not to repeat every player. Like, it's really boring. If you want to pop that up?
Oops, which one is it? 5?
Yeah, 5. There you go. So this is my mock draft for today. And you can't see me right now, which is fine. But this was my mock draft for today. So if you want to go hear my explanation on this, I go player by player and talk about it. I try not to repeat picks, right? It's really boring if I draft Teteroa McMillan 8 weeks in a row. Like, you guys want to hear different players. Last year, I did a crazy scenario where the Patriots traded for Justin Fields. And that was before, but I did ones with Drake May. So I'm going to talk about so many different scenarios, trade downs, trade ups back into the first, like everything and mostly every prospect will be talked about on those mock draft Mondays. So if you haven't already, make sure you guys are subscribed so you have the notification bell on. And then I'm sure here in probably a week or so, once the Senior Bowl happens and the combine's close, me and Cole will be ramping up the lives with mock drafts and, more prospect talks. I'm a draft sicko, so Cole's just getting on there, but he seems to love Abdul Carter, which is good because I think Abdul Carter is very interesting. So
you got to do your job in free agency, though, if you want to draft him.
You do. You definitely do. So, but no, I don't got anything else. I mean, I think it was definitely a surprising change yesterday, especially how fast it happened, but I think it was the right one. I think it was the right one.
I didn't think Robert had the berries to do it, to be honest. I thought he was going to be more like just sticking to his, not admitting when he was wrong. I think I was worried that he was going to do, but I was happily surprised that he felt like he made the wrong decision and he's jumping on it now to get one of the top candidates. Because you never know, next year you have no idea who the candidates are going to be.
Yeah,
and
this is one of the best cycles in a while. Like the draft is pretty bad. The draft was really good last year. This is a really good head coaching cycle. So do not want to miss out on something like this.
You got Vrabel, you got Ben Johnson, you got Brian Flores, you got the DC from the Lions. What the heck's his name?
Glenn.
Yeah, Glenn. So there's some good options out there, and I'm hoping they do a thorough search and end up with one of the guys we like here.
Totally agree. I'll answer this for you, Mob. I would not be willing to trade for Debo. I just that body with how many injuries he's had and how many shots he's taken and how they've used him, like he's got to be in a specific scheme. With Ben Johnson, he'd probably be exciting, but man, he's so old, so injury prone, and that's a bad contract right now. So for that, probably not, because what are the Niners at, like 12? Well, or maybe they're lower. They're somewhere in the
around there.
Yeah, in the low teens and stuff. But I don't know. I mean, if the Patriots were to trade down, the hard part is who's going to want to trade up to 4, unless some team really wants to trade up for Abdul Carter or a Teteroa McMillan. But there's not going to be a team looking to trade up because most likely the quarterbacks will be gone. So I don't know. And I think Hunter probably goes to the Giants at pick 3. So it's going to, because they need a corner, and putting him and Malik Neighbors, even though they still don't have an option at quarterback, is pretty nasty. So
not good for my dynasty team. I need a quarterback.
Just take whoever they have at quarterback. I mean, it might be pretty good for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if a QB falls, it sounds like Tennessee loves Cam Ward, and we expect the Browns, because they just said that what's his name? Deshaun Watson's having a setback with his Achilles. So if anything, the Browns might trade out. Like the Browns might trade out. But
that was that's what I've seen in some mock drafts, is the Browns passing on a quarterback and one falling to the Giants
So if they pass, the Giants ain't going to pass.
Exactly. So I don't, there's, as much as we fell in love with trading back from a high pick at 1, it made a lot of sense. It doesn't make a lot of sense now, unless by miracle somebody falls that isn't supposed to. And at that point, you should just take him unless it's a quarterback.
Yeah. The one thing that would be interesting for a quarterback falling to 3 is we've heard Coach Prime Coach Sanders say, like, hey, my boys, Shadur and Travis, they going to play where I tell them to play. Like, is he going to pull a draft day thing and be like, he's playing in New York? Like, is he going to force the Browns to pass on him? Or is he going to force, them to take someone or trade out and then say, hey, Shadur is going to the Giants? So that's a possibility.
See them flip spots.
They could.
Yeah.
So that could be a possibility, just because we've heard him say that. I don't know how likely it is, but
but like if he's being straight up and saying, listen, Cleveland, he's not going there.
Yeah.
Then Cleveland can say, okay, we'll trade back with the Giants. We'll still get Travis Hunter, whatever. Like, so that'd be interesting.
For sure. So guys, we could go on and on for draft talk. Just make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and turn the notification bell on, because like I said, mock draft Mondays, clips, and of course more lives coming up through the off season, through the draft process, free agency, things like that. You don't want to miss it. And we'll be here to answer all your questions and talk Patriots football. So anything else, Cole?
That's all I got. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Like Jay said, like, subscribe, give us your thoughts on his mock drafts. He's doing a great job. Looking forward to some film breakdowns again this off season with some of these top guys. So
I was thinking of doing one about Drake May, just kind of wrapping up I'm going to try to find film.
I mean, NFL just released a 20-something minute video on his best highlights of the year. So, going through even some of those in the all 22 or whatever, that'd be good. I'm sure people would enjoy that. I would.
Yeah, I mean, the last Drake May, the only video to perform better than the mock draft I just uploaded was my Drake May film review once they drafted him. And that was, I titled it Why the NFL's in Trouble for letting the Patriots take him. So that's the only one that's done better. So I think a lot of people after, kind of the hype he has and stuff, they would be willing to do it.
What was the one a while ago? Wasn't it?
You talk about the one that got like 15,000. It was Cameron McGrone.
Yes, McGrone.
So random. Our most viewed video was a Cameron McGrone film review out of Michigan. Like when we took him out of the fourth, and I was like, hey, this guy, like, he's not going to play this year, but he's really athletic. He probably would have been a third or fourth or second or third round pick. Blah, blah. He got like 14 and a half, maybe 15,000 views. Like the guy didn't even pan out. So
yeah.
Same thing. Pierre Strong's video did pretty good too. And he was an exciting running back.
That's the
Pierre
top two.
Strong's did
That's
good,
the top two. Cam McGrone at almost 15K, and then Pierre Strong at a little over 12K.
That's crazy.
So random. And then it's Drake May.
Guys. Yeah. Come on, get the Drake May video up, guys. Let him pass. Stop having Cameron McGrone at the top of our
that's crazy.
Page.
That is crazy.
Yep.
Oh boy, that's funny.
Totally random. But nope, that's all I got. So appreciate you guys tuning in. So
Yep. All right. Well, I'm sure hopefully we'll have some news here coming up, do some clips and all that stuff that Jay said, but we appreciate you guys tuning in, and until next time, we'll talk to you later.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Patriots Drive podcast. Follow us on social media to stay up to date with all things New England Patriots. Make sure you tune in to the next episode and check out patriotsdrive.com for more great content.
We're on to Cincinnati.